Mons pubis is in the front. And then we go to the sagittal section. We're going to have number 48, which is the labia minora. Okay. On the outside, labia majora. And had this purplish structure, that's the clitoris. Okay, a bladder. Right. Vagina. Here's the cervix at the end of the uterus. So this whole thing here is the uterus. Okay. If I remove the uterus, we can see the cervix better. Pink. And then we can see back here, this kind of grayish structure here, that's the ovary. This red tube structure, that's the uterine tube. And at the end of the uterine tube, when you look at this closely, it looks like the little finger-like projections. Those would be the fimbriae. Okay? And when that egg goes out into the abdominal pelvic cavity, those little things start to contract, as well as the cilia, to suck that egg into the uterine tube to go down the pathway. And as I said, if it doesn't make it into the uterine tube, it's going to just be reabsorbed in the abdominal pelvic cavity. Okay? So that's the structures that we have here. You can also take this out. There we go. And look at things a little bit more closely. So that comes out. We have another equivalent model of both male and female pelvis that'll be available, and the keys are available too. Now on this model, we can also identify endometrium, myometrium, periometrium. Okay? So the dark line here in the middle represent the endometrium, the lining. All this stuff, and if you look at the model closely, it has little squiggly lines in it. That represents the smooth muscle layer, so that's the myometrium. And then here is the connective tissue covering, which would be periometrium. So make sure you look at the slides, particularly if you haven't before, the ones related to the reproductive system, because they'll make a lot more sense now than if you looked at them last week. Okay? So when you look at the slide of the uterus, it'll say secretory phase of the uterus, so we're going to be able to see all three layers. Right? The purple spongy looking layer is the endometrium. One that's more of a pink, dense looking tissue is that smooth muscle. It doesn't look like the typical smooth muscle we're used to seeing that's nice and circular and everything. It's because the walls of the uterus, the muscles go in multiple directions. Okay? So think about when the baby is born, we have to be able to have almost like a ringing effect of the uterus to propel the baby out. We don't want to just do this. Okay, or this. We want to go this. Okay, and push that baby out. Okay. And then if you go all the way to the end of the smooth muscle, there's going to be the periometrium. So if the pointer is on, I see air, and I see pointer, and then I see dark pink, I have to be on the periometrium. If I'm in the pink, I have to be in the myometrium. If I'm in the purple, I have to be in the endometrium. Okay? So make sure you move through that whole slide. And what I'll try to do for the test is has two layers side by side so you can distinguish between one and the other. Okay? So make sure you move through that whole thing. Right? Yes, I hear a question for me.
On the test, can we just put like endometrium, or would we have to put endometrium of the uterus?
No, you could just put endometrium. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the other thing too, when you're looking at the slide of the testes, okay, you're going to be seeing those seminiferous tubules, okay, looking like this, and then you're going to see little dots in between, okay. So if the pointer was on a tubule and said I could label the structure or identify the structure at the tip of the pointer, that's going to be a seminiferous tubule. If the pointer was sticking in here and it said identify that structure, that would be those interstitial cells. Okay? And those interstitial cells make testosterone, and that testosterone is released, goes into these seminiferous tubules, and it promotes spermatogenesis, the production of the sperm. Okay? So just like when you were looking at an artery and a vein and all that, if it's on the outer layer, it's on this. If it's on the inner layer, it's this structure. Think about the same thing here with the tubule. Now the other thing to think about with those is you can ask the specific part, okay, but I also can ask you to identify the organ. So if I look at this and it's pointing to anything and says identify the organ at the tip of the pointer, we're looking at organ, we're not looking specific structure. So that would be testes. If I'm showing you an ovary, it would obviously be ovary. We're not looking for a primary follicle or secondary follicle. Okay? So if we see ovary, it's going to be more oval in shape. Okay? And what you're going to see is near the edges, you're going to see little dots. Okay? Those would be the primary follicles. All the primary follicles are on the periphery. Right? So these are primary follicles. If I see something bigger, it kind of looks like that, okay? It has the egg in here, and then there's fluid surrounding it. That's the Graafian follicle, okay? Right. Now, the corpus luteum is a totally separate slide in there. And honestly, it's very difficult to describe, okay? Because what it looks like is just a big ball of cells, really, okay? And so you're going to see something that kind of looks like this, kind of squiggly, okay? It's kind of weird looking. It doesn't, it has these lumps and bumps to it, but it doesn't look like an intestine that has a little villi and all that. So it has a very unique looking feature. So make sure you look at this. Okay. Now, what I'll do too is you're all getting started, I'll make sure things are pointing at stuff in there. So you'll just have a starting point to know, all right? So those are the slides related to reproductive systems, right? So again, you need to be able to identify both the structure and the organ. So when you have the test, pay attention to what the question's saying. And if you're not sure what it's asking, make sure you ask, okay? 'Cause I have no idea what goes through your mind unless you ask me, okay? So help clarify that information, right? So what I'm going to have you do is get your